Breaking news right now. New allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. Lawyer Michael Avenatti has now announced the identity of a third accuser against the Supreme Court nominee. This woman's name is Julie Swetnick. Julie Swetnick is Avenatti's client. Avenatti has been teasing this out for days now. The announcement, of course, coming on the eve of a hearing that will feature testimony from the first woman to accuse Kavanaugh of sexual assault. Kavanaugh, for his part, the judge has denied the allegations of sexual assault or misconduct against him, but has not addressed this specific claim as of yet. We should note here, NBC News has not had the chance to vet this woman's allegations. We have not spoken to this woman. We do not have access to her. We have very limited information about her background. We have solicited both Kavanaugh's representatives and the White House for comment, but right now we are waiting for a reply. Again, this is a fast-moving story. Our Kate Snow has been following it here for the past 30 or 45 minutes or so. What more do we know, Kate?
Just, as you said, just developing, just coming in, and really all we have right now is a statement on Twitter from Michael Avenatti, the attorney for this woman, Julie Swetnick, with her written declaration attached to that tweet. And as Craig said, we have not been able to verify these allegations in any way, but I can fill you in, Craig, on what she says. Essentially, she says, this is her allegation, that Brett Kavanaugh drank excessively on many occasions at many parties. She says she grew up in that area. She says that she went to high school in the area at a public high school near where Kavanaugh went to school, at a private boys' school. Again, we've not verified that information. And the most dramatic allegation in a set of allegations here is that she witnessed Brett Kavanaugh and others, these are her words, to cause girls to become inebriated and disoriented so that they could then be gang raped in a side room or a bedroom by a train of numerous boys at parties where there was heavy drinking going on. In 1982, approximately, she says, I became the victim of one of these gang or train rapes where Mark Judge, which is a friend of Brett Kavanaugh, and Brett Kavanaugh were present. Shortly after the incident, I shared what had transpired with at least 2 other people. During the incident, I was incapacitated without my consent and unable to fight off the boys raping me. I believe I was drugged using Quaaludes or something similar, placed in what I was drinking. Again, I'm reading from what is said to be a written declaration from a woman named Julie Swetnick. Again, NBC News has not yet been able to verify this woman, you know, who she is, what she says about her history. Yeah. We've not been able to verify the details yet. I'm reading from an attachment to Twitter, a tweet from her attorney, who we have been reaching out to and are speaking with. I should also note, Craig, this has been teased for days now. If you follow Michael Avenatti on Twitter, which I do, you've seen for days now he's been saying, I have something, I want to talk to the Judiciary Committee. Also in the tweet, he includes a couple of bit of correspondence with the committee where he seems to want attention to these details. And we don't know why he's released it on Twitter. We don't know why he's waited till the 11th hour. Obviously, tomorrow is the scheduled day for the hearing. I
want to go now. We're going to go to Michael Avenatti. We're going to go to this third accuser's attorney. This is Avenatti on The View a few moments ago. Let's listen in.
No excuse for the committee and for Brett Kavanaugh not calling Mark Judge to testify for the committee. This is a man that is one of the closest friends of Brett Kavanaugh at the time period at issue, and all you have to know is that they are hiding him. They are hiding Mark Judge from the American people, and I can assure you if he had positive things to say about this time period and positive things to say about Brett Kavanaugh's conduct, we would have already heard from him.
Michael, before we let you go, can you just explain again to our viewers and to all of us as this is breaking, what specifically did Judge Kavanaugh do to your client?
Well, again, I'm going to stand on the exact language in the declaration. It's laid out in detail in the declaration. There's a reason why it's laid out in the declaration, and we're not going to provide any additional comment on that exact question until the coming days. Okay?
All right, Michael, we will hear from you soon. Thank you. All right, and a legal note. This information, of course, has just been released, so Brett Kavanaugh and Mark Judge have not commented, but ABC News is reaching out to them. We will let you know if we hear back.
Yeah.
All right, Michael Avenatti there, literally just a few moments ago on The View, talking specifically about these accusations. And Mimi Rocha is still with us, MSNBC legal analyst. So is Danny Savalos as well, and Kate Snow's going to stick around. I do want to put up the calendar. This is a calendar that was released by the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is a calendar that apparently Judge Kavanaugh kept as a high school student back in 1982. In point 9 of Julie Swetnick's deposition, this deposition that Kate was just reading from, declaration, excuse me, Julie Swetnick's declaration there, it would appear to line up with events on Kavanaugh's calendar, especially something called Beach Week. You'll notice there, second from the left, Beach Week. Point 9 of Swetnick's declaration reads, quote, I have been told by other women that this conduct also occurred during the summer months in Ocean City, Maryland on numerous occasions. I also witnessed such conduct on one occasion in Ocean City, Maryland during Beach Week. Beach Week, something there on the calendar that occurred from June 6th through June 13th of 1982. Michael Avenatti now joins me on the telephone. Mr. Avenatti, you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
I'm well. Michael, why wait until 11:30 the morning before the Senate Judiciary Committee is set to hear from this first accuser to drop a bombshell like this?
Well, that's not what happened. We revealed the allegations on Sunday. We conversed with the committee on Sunday. They didn't need to know the name of my client to begin an investigation. We had detailed correspondence that we sent to them on Monday morning, which I have posted and disseminated. They never got back to us. I asked for follow-up on Monday evening. They didn't get back to us Monday evening. They didn't get back to us yesterday. And we finally disclosed the client's name today because we had to take adequate security procedures, make sure they were in place. This is a very serious matter, and ultimately it's the client's determination, not mine or anybody else's for that matter, as to when her identity is revealed. So we disclosed this days ago, and the fact of the matter is that Chairman Grassley, Mr. Davis, the counsel to the committee, Mitch McConnell, and others, they don't want the truth to be known regarding Brett Kavanaugh. There should be an immediate investigation, and there should be no rush to confirm him to the U.S. Supreme Court. This is a search for the truth.
What does your client want to happen immediately?
She wants an FBI investigation to be launched immediately. She is prepared to meet with the FBI, disclose everything that she knows, disclose additional witnesses. Brett Kavanaugh said the other night on Fox that he wants an opportunity to be heard. Well, first of all, he's already had quite the opportunity to be heard. And if there's an FBI investigation, he'll have a further opportunity to be heard. But there should not be a rush to confirm him, and there should be a proper investigation performed by professionals, namely FBI agents.
Is she prepared to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee?
100%, absolutely.
Michael, again, we're all just sifting through the declaration right now. Can you walk our viewers and listeners, can you walk them through specifically what your client is alleging?
Well, again, I'm going to point directly to the language in the declaration, which I think is explicit, but generally, my client witnessed, observed, and experienced very aggressive, inappropriate behavior by Brett Kavanaugh and Mark Judge in the early 1980s. Brett Kavanaugh, she is describing as someone that drank excessively, was verbally and physically abusive towards women, also engaged in conduct relating to attempting to get women inebriated, take advantage of women, ultimately put women in positions where they could be gang raped by multiple men, or boys, I should say. Now, look, I want to be really clear about something. The allegations in this declaration are shocking. They are also detailed, and my client stands behind them 100%. My client has been issued a number of security clearances by the federal government over the years. She has been fully vetted time and time again, and she is an honest and courageous woman. And I'm going to caution Donald Trump, Brett Kavanaugh, Chairman Grassley, and others. If they try to come after my client or engage in some smear campaign, they better pack a lunch, because we're going to respond twofold. We are going to respond double as it relates to force. So they better be very careful before they start spewing nonsense and trying to call my client a liar.
Has your client confided in others about these claims? Has she talked to a therapist? Has she talked to authorities before this?
There are corroborating witnesses that she is aware of that can support these allegations, and as set forth in the declaration, around the time of the most serious allegation, she confided in at least 2 additional witnesses. So again, we want there to be a deliberative process by which all of these allegations are investigated thoroughly, and then ultimately, once all of the facts are obtained, then and only then should Brett Kavanaugh's nomination be considered. And frankly, I think in light of these allegations, as well as Dr. Ford's, as well as Ms. Ramirez, as well as others, there can be no question that the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh should be immediately withdrawn. There are numerous judges and attorneys in the United States that are capable of serving on our U.S. Supreme Court for life that do not have these type of questions about their backgrounds. And unfortunately, I've got to run, but I appreciate the time.
Michael, really quickly here, because we want to make sure we get this right. First of all, you're pointing out that there are 2 additional corroborating witnesses. And to be clear, you are not claiming, or your client is not claiming, that Judge Kavanaugh actually engaged in gang rape or anything like that. But your claim is that he was...
No, you're incorrect about that. I'm going to point you directly to the language of the declaration. It is purposeful as it relates to the allegations that my client is making. And I'm not going to characterize those allegations or mischaracterize those allegations. They are black and white, and they are clear as day. And unfortunately, I'm going to run. I apologize.
And approximately, Michael Avenatti, come back when you can, please. Michael Avenatti there, attorney for this third accuser. Mr. Avenatti, pointing to line 13 of this declaration. I'm just going to read this for our viewers and listeners. In approximately 1982, I became the victim of one of these gang or train rapes where Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh were present. Shortly after the incident, I shared what had transpired with at least 2 other people. During the incident, I was incapacitated without my consent and unable to fight off the boys raping me. I believe I was drugged using Quaaludes or something similar placed in what I was drinking. Michael Avenatti there attempting to explain the timing of some of this, saying that he had an initial conversation with the Senate Judiciary Committee about all of this starting on Sunday evening. Kate, you were about to chime in there.
Well, I just want to chime in that in what you just read, in her declaration, she says Brett Kavanaugh was present. She does not actually say that he committed rape, but what Michael just said on the phone to my ear suggested that, yes, she does believe that he was one of the assailants.
Yes, and for that, you go to paragraph 12, because that's where you have the actual allegations of Brett Kavanaugh participating. The key between paragraph 12 and paragraph 13, 13 describes an alleged rape of Ms. Swetnick. And the question is, and you really honed in on the exact word, in the criminal context, mere presence is a vastly different thing than participation. And the choice of the word "were present" will be the subject of scrutiny in days to to come, because the question is, was he just present or was he participating? Or by merely being present, was he participating? And I think those are important things. However, make no mistake about it, in paragraph 12, there is a very strong inference to be drawn, without her outright saying it, that she has a firm, and I'm quoting, a firm recollection of seeing boys lined up outside rooms waiting at many of these parties for their turn with a girl inside the room. Then the next sentence, these boys included Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh. That's what's in the statement. That appears to be a direct allegation.
Mimi, regardless of how you feel about the timing of all of this, it would seem that the Judiciary Committee would be compelled to hear from this third accuser.
It would seem. You know, look, Avenatti has certain strategies that he employs. What he's done here is unusual, but he's put this in a declaration form so that it can no longer be called just allegations, smears. He has made this as evidentiary, if you will, as possible, without her actually being under oath and testifying. So it is, I think, much harder for them to ignore her and just keep plowing forward. Now you have a sworn declaration by someone to which she is subject to penalties. And, you know, the point, if this goes back to something that we were talking about earlier, why is all of this important? Certainly, if it can be shown that he engaged in any kind of sexual assault, let alone gang rape, even as a teenager, that should be automatically disqualifying for a job like the Supreme Court. But even if he didn't, remember, this is a man who is saying he treated women with respect from day one. He has never treated women badly. He has never drunk. He has never engaged in party behavior.
Well, I mean, never drank to excess. Never got blackout drunk.
True. And you know, I'm generalizing, but he has made very specific denials and very specific statements about his view and treatment of women. And so these allegations, even if he didn't actually engage in the gang rape, even if he was just present, even if he allowed it to happen, why is he lying about it? And that shows an utter lack of respect. And one last point, which is, again, this is not a criminal trial, so it doesn't need to be proven, you know, beyond a reasonable doubt. It doesn't need to be proven more than mere presence, things like that. But it is a job interview. And why does the FBI do these background checks? A couple of reasons. One, for a job like this, you want to know someone's moral character, their truthfulness. And two, a big part of background checks is making sure that someone in a position of power, like a government official or a Supreme Court justice, is not subject to blackmail. Because if they're subject to blackmail, then their decisions can be corrupted. And it would seem to me that if nothing else, Brett Kavanaugh is severely subject to some kind of blackmail, because there are people out there who believe that he engaged in bad behavior. And that is something they cannot ignore.
We should note here, again, that Judge Kavanaugh has denied all allegations of sexual assault or misconduct against him. We are reaching out, have reached out to the judge for a comment about this specific allegation. We are also reaching out to the White House as well. So far, we have not heard back from any of them. We have also not heard from Chairman Grassley, of course, the senator who runs the Senate Judiciary Committee. That committee set to start those hearings less than 24 hours from now. I want to follow up on something else you just said there, Mimi. These accusations, the first, the second, the third now, how would a sitting federal judge, how would these accusations not surface so far?
Well, that's a great question, and I think the answer is a couple of things. You know, it does, in my experience, having been through background checks myself, having been interviewed for other people's, they do tend to focus on ages 18 and up. You know, some of this conduct predates this. That doesn't mean it's irrelevant. It just means that's what the FBI tends to focus on. And quite honestly, I think this gets back to the problem we've all been talking about for days. Why don't people come forward and talk about these things? They're embarrassed, they're ashamed. Even people who might have just known about it or been corroborating witnesses, I think they're afraid of ruining people's careers. And you have to dig deep. And once one person starts coming forward, it can open the floodgates to the truth. I know some people would say it opens the floodgates to lies. I would argue both can be possible, and you have to figure out what's true. And so you don't just say, well, they should have found it, so now we're going to move on and ignore it.
I just want to pick up, Craig, on a couple of things here. And I think we would all agree that presence in a gang rape situation is a big deal. Survivors of sexual assault, people who advocate for survivors of sexual assault, who are listening to this are probably thinking, well, that's bad enough. I mean, just being there, if true, is a huge, huge problem for Judge Kavanaugh. I also just want to point out that in the statement, during the years 1981 to 82, she says, I became aware of efforts by Mark Judge, Brett Kavanaugh, and others to spike the punch at house parties with drugs. So we're not just talking about sexual assault, we're also talking about potentially drugging.
We have a statement now from Senator Grassley, just getting this statement. And again, Grassley, the senator there that is in charge of the Judiciary Committee that is set to take up Kavanaugh's hearing tomorrow. I will read that statement. This morning, Michael Avenatti provided a declaration to the Judiciary Committee. Committee lawyers are in the process of reviewing it now. That's it. That's the statement from Senator Grassley's spokesman there, Taylor Foy. Again, Michael Avenatti, the attorney who is representing this third woman. Her name is Julie Swetnick. She lives in Washington, D.C., according to her declaration. Avenatti telling me just a few moments ago that she is willing to testify before that committee. Avenatti saying that he had initial conversations with members of the committee over the weekend, another conversation then on Monday. And in this declaration, it's a three-page declaration. I would encourage all of you to get to the internet and read it. We can't read the whole thing here. But he also points out, Danny, in the declaration that his client held the following inactive clearances, secret clearances at DOJ, Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection as well. Why include that in the declaration?
To establish her credibility, to give her the appearance of somebody that didn't just show up out of the blue, and that she's validated at least on some level. It's actually a very good piece of strategy by Michael Avenatti to include that in the statement, because believe me, these statements, and I've prepared these for clients too, you have to go over them carefully as the attorney. Michael Avenatti surely went over each one of these paragraphs, and there's not a word that's in there accidentally.
You know what? It has dawned on me that everyone might not have access to the internet right now.
I'm tweeting it right now, if that helps.
You do that, and I'm actually going to read some of the relevant portions here from this declaration. We'll start on line 6. Again, this is from Julie Swetnick, the third accuser here. I first met Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh in approximately 1980, 1981. I was introduced to them at a house party that I attended in the Washington, D.C. area. I observed Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh as extremely close friends during the early 1980s when I knew them and interacted with them. I would describe them as, quote, joined at the hip, and I consistently saw them together in many social settings. There is no question in my mind that Mark Judge has significant information concerning the conduct of Brett Kavanaugh during the 1980s, especially as it relates to his actions toward women. Following that first introduction, I attended well over 10 house parties in the Washington, D.C. area during the years 1981 and 1983, where Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh were present. These parties were a common occurrence in the area and occurred nearly every weekend during the school year. On numerous occasions at these parties, I witnessed Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh drink excessively and engage in highly inappropriate conduct, including being overly aggressive with girls and not taking no for an answer. This conduct included the fondling and grabbing of girls without their consent. I observed Brett Kavanaugh drink excessively at many of these parties and engage in abusive and physically aggressive behavior toward girls, including pressing girls against him without their consent, grinding against girls, and attempting to remove or shift girls' clothing to expose private body parts. I likewise observed him to be verbally abusive toward girls by making crude sexual comments to them that were designed to demean, humiliate, and embarrass them. I often witnessed Brett Kavanaugh speak in a demeaning manner about girls in general, as well as specific girls by name. I also witnessed Brett Kavanaugh behave as a, quote, mean drunk on many occasions at these parties. I have been told by other women that this conduct also occurred during the summer months in Ocean City, Maryland on numerous occasions. I also witnessed such conduct on one occasion in Ocean City, Maryland during Beach Week. I have reviewed Brett Kavanaugh's recent claim on Fox News regarding his alleged, quote, innocence during his high school years and lack of sexual activity. This claim is absolutely false and a lie. I witnessed Brett Kavanaugh consistently engage in excessive drinking and inappropriate contact of a sexual nature with women during the early 1980s. During the years 1981 to 1982, I became aware of efforts by Mark Judge, Brett Kavanaugh, and others to spike the punch at house parties I attended with drugs and/or grain alcohol so as to cause girls to lose their inhibitions and their ability to say no. This caused me to make an effort to purposely avoid the punch at these parties. I witnessed efforts by Mark Judge, Brett Kavanaugh, and others to target particular girls so they could be taken advantage of. It was usually a girl that was especially vulnerable because she was alone at the party or shy. I also witnessed efforts by Mark Judge, Brett Kavanaugh, and others to cause girls to become inebriated and disoriented so they could then be gang raped in a side room or bedroom by a train of numerous boys. I have a firm recollection of seeing boys lined up outside rooms at many of these parties waiting for their turn with the girl inside the room. These boys included Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh. In approximately 1982, I became the victim of one of these gang or train rapes where Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh were present. Shortly after the incident, I shared what had transpired with at least 2 other people. During the incident, I was incapacitated without my consent and unable to fight off the boys raping me. I believe I was drugged using Quaaludes or something similar placed in what I was drinking. I am aware of other witnesses that can attest to the truthfulness of the statements above. I declare under penalty of perjury and under the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct. I have executed this declaration on September 25th, 2018. It would seem as if, Mimi, that you have a rape victim here who is claiming that a candidate for a Supreme Court justice seat was involved in a gang rape, was spiking drinks, and was involved in an assortment of other behavior that, if true, would not just disqualify him from the high court, but would also probably qualify him for prison, no?
Well, it would depend on the statute of limitations in each state, but my understanding is that in Maryland, which if that's where some of this occurred, I actually don't know about, all of the different locations that we're talking about, but in Maryland, there is no statute of limitations for sexual assault and rape. So that is possible. I think once we start talking about that, then the Kavanaugh defenders say, this is crazy and, that we've gone too far. So I think it's sort of important to stay focused on what we are definitely talking about right now, which is his qualifications for the Supreme Court, and that these kinds of actions, if true, should not only disqualify him, but remember, it also means he's lying about them, lying to the public, and probably also casts doubt on some of the other important things he's already testified about, namely his knowledge of, for example, Judge Kaczynski, the Ninth Circuit judge who Judge Kavanaugh clerked for, who he's said to be close with, and Kaczynski was essentially forced to retire because of corroborated claims of him sexually harassing clerks and other people in his
showing
employment.
Porn in the office.
Exactly. I mean, very blatant stuff that Judge Kavanaugh claims to have absolutely no idea about. And nobody really, well, a lot of people don't believe that. And again, his lies about these kind of things cast doubt on his statements about those kind of things. If I could just make one small point about the calendar. You pointed out a great fact that, I think is the kind of thing prosecutors look for. There's a time in the calendar that talks about Beach Week. That seems to actually sort of support what this declaration is saying about him being at the beach at these parties. There's also a statement in the calendar about, a couple of times about Mark Judge. It says Judge. That's obviously Mark Judge. Again, these calendars are put forward by Kavanaugh. I mean, I'm not sure what his purpose is in them, but actually I think if you go through it with a fine-tooth comb, there probably are numerous things that are going to end up supporting what, corroborating what the people are saying who are making very serious allegations. And that's the kind of thing you need investigators to do. And this just shows that they're not doing their job.
I want to tell you about the state of our reporting right now, Craig. So first of all, NBC News has not been able to independently verify or speak with Julie Swetnick. We have looked into public records and found records of her living in Maryland, found records of even a couple of businesses she may have owned. Again, not verified yet, but public records do exist to show that she may live in Maryland. I also want to point out that as you've said, Judge Kavanaugh has denied the first two allegations against him. Also, Mr. Judge, who is, if the name is confusing, but Mark Judge is the man who's named throughout this declaration as being a best buddy of Brett Kavanaugh and being with him, joined at the hip and engaging in these activities. Recently, Judge responded to the very first allegation from Dr. Ford, saying he had no memory of that alleged incident and said, Brett Kavanaugh and I were friends in high school, but I do not recall the party described in Dr. Ford's letter. More to the point, I never saw Brett act in the manner Dr. Ford describes. I just wanted to bring that back and also tell you that we're waiting for something from the White House. We have asked the White House for any kind of comment.
I spoke to Michael Avenatti, attorney for this third accuser, a few moments ago, asked him specifically about the timing of all of this. This was Avenatti's response. Michael, why wait until 11:30 the morning before the Senate Judiciary Committee is set to hear from this first accuser to drop a bombshell like this?
Well, that's not what happened. We revealed the allegations on Sunday. We conversed with the committee on Sunday. They didn't need to know the name of my client to begin an investigation. We had detailed correspondence that we sent to them on Monday morning, which I have posted and disseminated. They never got back to us. I asked for follow-up on Monday evening. They didn't get back to us Monday evening. They didn't get back to us yesterday. And we finally disclosed the client's name today because we had to take adequate security procedures, make sure they were in place. This is a very serious matter, and ultimately it's the client's determination, not mine or anybody else's for that matter, as to when her identity is revealed. So we disclosed this days ago, and the fact of the matter is that Chairman Grassley, Mr. Davis, the counsel to the committee, Mitch McConnell, and others, they don't want the truth to be known regarding Brett Kavanaugh.
Again, Michael Avenatti just a few moments ago to me here on MSNBC.